The plastic keycard, stark black against my pale skin, felt like an icy accusation in my hand. My 8-year-old daughter, Riley, had pressed it into my palm with fingers that trembled ever so slightly, a tremor that, even then, resonated deep within my own soul. "Mom, Dad doesn't know I found this," she'd whispered, her voice barely a breath above the gentle hum of our car engine, yet it was a sound that would echo in my mind for years to come. It was the sound of a world cracking open. I'd glanced down, and there it was. Room 327, emblazoned in stark white letters on a hotel keycard I had never, ever seen before. A hotel keycard that, by all rights, should not exist in my life. The world tilted on its axis. My stomach dropped like a stone, plummeting into the deepest, darkest ocean trench. The visceral shock was instant, a cold, hard knot forming where my breath used to be. "Where did you find this, sweetheart?" I managed to ask, desperately trying to keep my voice steady, to prevent the tremors in my own hands from betraying the hurricane raging within me. I pulled the car over to the side of the road, the familiar suburban street suddenly alien, dangerous. I knew, with an icy certainty, that I could no longer trust myself to drive. Riley, with her big, innocent brown eyes, looked up at me, a flicker of confusion clouding their usual brightness. "It fell out of Daddy's jacket pocket when I was looking for gum," she explained, her answer a devastatingly mundane detail against the backdrop of my unfolding nightmare. "I picked it up because I thought maybe we were going to stay at a hotel tonight after Grandma and Grandpa's party." The anniversary party. Her words twisted the knife deeper. Ethan, my husband of 12 years, had been so unusually, aggressively insistent that we take separate cars to his parents' 30th wedding anniversary celebration. His excuse? He claimed he might need to leave early for work, that an emergency project could call him away at any moment. At the time, I'd bought it, perhaps a little too easily. I was a wife who trusted, a woman who gave her husband the benefit of the doubt. I'd even admired his dedication, his purported commitment to his career, believing it was all for our family. How naive I had been, how utterly blind. But now, holding that cold, hard piece of plastic, the chilling truth unfurled itself with brutal clarity. While I, Sophia, the devoted wife, the supportive daughter-in-law, would be at his parents' celebration of enduring love, my husband would be in room 327, weaving a different, darker tapestry of intimacy with someone else. My mind, a whirlwind of disbelief and dawning horror, raced back to that morning's conversation. His unusual insistence about the separate cars, his thinly veiled aggression when I'd innocently suggested we all go together as a family. It all clicked into place, pieces of a horrifying puzzle I hadn't even known I was solving. "Sophia, I already told you I might get called in for that emergency project," he had said, his eyes carefully avoiding mine, a telltale sign I had completely missed. "You know how important this client is to the firm." And I had believed him. I'd even felt a pang of guilt for questioning him, for perhaps not being supportive enough. The memory of all those late nights, the sudden weekend work trips, the hushed phone calls he'd taken in another room, away from curious ears, away from my ears, they all replayed in a sickening montage. How long, I wondered, had I been living in this carefully constructed illusion? How many times had he looked me straight in the eye, his gaze unwavering, and uttered a carefully crafted lie? The sheer audacity, the depth of his deceit, choked me. "Are we still going to the party, Mom?" Riley's voice, small and filled with the innocent expectation of a child, cut through my tormented thoughts. She was buckling her seatbelt, noticing the complete stop, noticing the silence, sensing perhaps a shift in the air that her young mind couldn't yet articulate. I looked at my daughter in the rearview mirror. She was dressed in her pretty pink dress, a vision of childhood joy, excited to see her grandparents and cousins, utterly oblivious to the chasm that had just opened beneath our feet. Her innocence, in that excruciating moment, broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. She had no idea that her small, accidental discovery had just shattered our entire family. My breath caught, a wave of protectiveness washing over me. I couldn't expose her to this. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "Change of plans, baby," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, considering the seismic shift occurring inside me. I made a U-turn, heading in the opposite direction from the anniversary party, away from the hotel, towards my sister's house. "We're going to drop you off at Aunt Patricia's house first." The words felt heavy, final. As I drove toward Patricia's, my mind was a maelstrom of questions, each one igniting a fresh spark of anger that felt like a burning inferno in my chest. Who was she? How long had this been going on? Had I been the fool, playing the role of happy wife, while he meticulously, cunningly lived a completely separate, secret life? The humiliation was a bitter taste in my mouth, the betrayal a sharp shard in my heart. I called Patricia from the car, the phone trembling slightly in my grip. "I need you to watch Riley for a few hours," I said the moment she answered, cutting straight to the point, my voice tight with unshed tears and mounting fury. "What's wrong? You sound upset." Patricia, my older sister, knew me too well, her intuition a finely tuned instrument honed over decades of sisterhood. "I'll explain later," I mumbled, my throat closing. "Can you just take her, please?" The desperation in my plea was raw, unmasked. "Of course, bring her over now," she said without hesitation, her unwavering support a small, comforting anchor in my turbulent sea. 20 minutes later, I was hugging Riley goodbye at Patricia's front door. I tried to keep my smile bright, my tone light, but the effort was immense. "Have fun with Aunt Patricia, okay? Mommy has some important things to take care of." "Is Daddy in trouble?" Riley asked, her innocent question nearly undoing my carefully constructed facade. The simple query, devoid of malice or judgment, just pure concern, felt like a punch to the gut. This child, our child, already sensing the shift, the discord, the unspoken turmoil. I knelt, trying to meet her eyes, to convey the complex truth in a simple, reassuring way. "Adults sometimes make mistakes, sweetheart," I said, choosing my words with immense care, walking a tightrope between truth and protection. "But whatever happens, you are loved and safe, okay?" My voice cracked slightly on the last word, but I willed it steady. She nodded, still confused but accepting, her trust in me absolute. After leaving Riley, I sat in my car outside Patricia's house, staring blankly at the hotel keycard again. The Grand View Hotel. Only 15 minutes away. 15 minutes to the truth. 15 minutes to the shattering of everything I thought I knew. I could drive there right now, confront them, unleash the storm that was brewing inside me. Or I could pretend. I could ignore the evidence, go to the anniversary party, smile, make polite small talk, and live in blissful, albeit soul-crushing denial for one more day. The thought was tempting, a brief, fleeting whisper of comfort in the face of overwhelming pain. But I already knew what I was going to do. The Sophia who had been the devoted wife, the understanding partner, the woman who always put everyone else's needs first. That Sophia was gone. Or rather, she was buried under layers of expectation and self-sacrifice. Today, I was going to be someone different. Today, I was going to unearth the truth, no matter how much it ripped me apart, no matter how much it redefined my world. As I drove toward the hotel, a surge of adrenaline sharpened my focus. I thought about the woman I used to be before I married Ethan, before I became Mrs. Ethan Hayes. I had been strong, independent, brimming with confidence, with dreams that stretched far beyond the confines of a perfectly organized home. Somewhere along the way, in my fervent desire to be the perfect wife, the ideal partner, I had slowly, subtly lost pieces of myself. I had pruned my ambitions, softened my edges, quieted my voice to better fit into the life he was building. Maybe, I realized with a fierce clarity that felt both exhilarating and terrifying, it was time to find those pieces again. The Grand View Hotel came into view, its modern glass facade reflecting the harsh glare of the afternoon sun, a cold, imposing monument to my husband's betrayal. I parked across the street, a safe distance, and watched the entrance for a few minutes. People flowed in and out, couples hand in hand, business travelers with their focused strides, families with laughing children. Each happy, unsuspecting face felt like a cruel mockery of my own collapsing reality. Somewhere inside, in room 327, my husband was dismantling everything we had painstakingly built together. I took a deep, shaky breath, the air burning my lungs. I grabbed the keycard, its plastic chill a stark contrast to the fire in my veins, and stepped out of my car. Whatever I was about to discover, whatever ugly truth lay hidden within those walls, would irrevocably change everything. But I was ready. I had been living in someone else's carefully constructed lie for too long. It was time, long past time, to face my truth. The hotel lobby was a bustling tableau of activity, a cacophony of hushed conversations, clinking glasses, and the distant melody of elevator chimes. Yet I felt strangely invisible, a ghost moving through a scene of vibrant life. The keycard, still clutched tightly in my purse, seemed to burn through the leather, a constant, tangible reminder of the devastating discovery that awaited me. It whispered of secrets, of clandestine encounters, of a betrayal so profound it threatened to redefine my entire existence. Instead of marching directly to room 327, a reckless, emotional impulse that would only serve to satisfy a momentary, furious desire for confrontation, I found a quiet corner in the lobby. I needed to think, to breathe, to strategize. The raw, searing anger was still there, but it was now tempered by a cold, calculating resolve. I pulled out my phone and did something I never, in my wildest nightmares, imagined I would do. I began investigating my own husband. The bitter irony was not lost on me. I opened his social media accounts, platforms I rarely looked at, having always implicitly trusted him, and found little need to monitor his online presence. At first glance, everything seemed normal, painfully so. Pictures of our family holidays, smiling faces masking a deeper deception, posts about work events, carefully curated to project an image of professionalism and dedication, updates on his favorite sports teams, a facade of normalcy. But then, my eyes snagged on something. A pattern. In several recent photos from various work events, there was always the same woman in the background. Tall, blonde, undeniably beautiful in a way that was almost aggressively obvious. A sickening twist clawed at my stomach. I clicked on her profile. Victoria Chin, marketing director at Ethan's firm. The name itself felt like a physical blow, a confirmation of my worst fears. Her recent posts told a story I had been entirely oblivious to, a story of a life intertwining with Ethan's that I had not been a part of. Work trips that miraculously coincided with Ethan's emergency projects and demanding client meetings, restaurant check-ins at places he had told me were purely business dinners, places I now recognized as romantic, upscale establishments he rarely, if ever, took me to, pictures of expensive gifts, a delicate watch, dazzling jewelry, lavish bouquets of flowers, accompanied by coy captions thanking her secret admirer. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now, a white-hot rage building with each scroll, each piece of digital evidence. Months, maybe even years, of carefully constructed lies unraveled before my eyes. Every late night, every weekend work trip, every seemingly innocuous excuse. They had all been meticulously crafted fabrications designed to cloak his double life. The man I had shared the bed with, raised a child with, built a life with, had been living a completely separate existence, a shadow life I had never suspected. The depth of his deception was breathtaking in its cruelty. But social media, I knew, was only the tip of the iceberg. I needed concrete, undeniable proof. I opened our shared bank account, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a drumbeat of impending doom. What I found made me feel physically ill, a cold wave of nausea washing over me. Regular charges at ridiculously expensive restaurants on days when Ethan had claimed to be working late, slaving away for our family's future. Hotel charges in other cities, always during his business trips, always for two people, always at charming boutique hotels rather than the sterile corporate establishments I might have expected. The most damaging evidence, a brutal, undeniable testament to his betrayal, was a jewelry store charge from just last week. $800 at a high-end boutique I had never set foot in on a day when Ethan had told me he was stuck in meetings all afternoon. My mind flashed to the small, sparkling diamond earrings Victoria had been wearing in her most recent selfie, the one she had captioned, "Feeling spoiled today." The pieces clicked together with sickening precision. My anger, already a raging fire, intensified, but it was no longer a wild, uncontrollable blaze. It was a focused inferno, burning away my disbelief and replacing it with a steely resolve. I took screenshots of everything, meticulously saving every incriminating piece of evidence, each digital artifact a bullet in the case I was building. If Ethan thought he could live this duplicitous life and face no consequences, he was about to learn just how profoundly wrong he was. I was Sophia, and I was coming for him. Next, I called our phone company, my voice deceptively calm as I navigated the automated menus. As his wife, I was authorized to access our account information. I requested detailed call logs for Ethan's number, expecting resistance, but the customer service representative was surprisingly helpful, emailing me 6 months of call records within minutes. The pattern was undeniable, stark in its clarity. Multiple calls and texts to Victoria's number every single day, often late at night, long after I had gone to bed, believing my husband was sound asleep beside me. Long, intimate conversations during his commute, quick check-ins throughout the day. They were communicating more, sharing more, talking more than he and I had talked in years. The emotional distance I had felt, the growing silence in our own marriage, now had a name, a face, and a phone number. Then I accessed our credit card statements online. More evidence piled up, a mountain of betrayals, charges for lingerie at stores I had would never shop at. Purchases at expensive spas and salons, luxury indulgences I had never experienced, dinner charges for two at romantic candlelit restaurants, all while I was at home, alone with Riley, believing my husband was working hard to provide for our family. The sheer audacity of it all, the calculated cruelty, was a fresh stab to my heart with every line item. The most painful discovery, a gut-wrenching blow, was a charge for a couple's massage at a luxury resort during a weekend when Ethan had claimed to be at an important business conference. I remembered that weekend with agonizing clarity. Riley had been sick with the flu, burning with fever, and I had taken care of her alone, nursing her through the night, while simultaneously worrying about Ethan's important work trip. The image of him, luxuriating in a couple's massage with Victoria, while I wrestled with a sick child and a growing sense of isolation, was a brutal, unforgettable image. I sat in that hotel lobby for 2 agonizing hours, meticulously building a case against my own husband. Every piece of evidence felt like another betrayal, another meticulously constructed lie uncovered, another layer of my naive trust stripped away. But the initial shock, the raw, searing pain, was slowly morphing. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was determined. Ethan had clearly believed I was too naive, too trusting, too emotionally dependent on him to ever figure out what he was doing. He had underestimated me. He was about to discover just how profoundly wrong he was about the woman he had married, the woman he had systematically dismantled with his lies. I looked up at the elevator bank, the glowing numbers signaling the floors above me. Room 327. Just floors above. I could go up there right now, unleash my fury, confront them in a scene of raw, primal emotion. I could scream and cry and make a scene that would forever be etched in the annals of that hotel's memory. But what would that achieve? A fleeting satisfaction? A public display of my humiliation? That wasn't going to give me what I needed. What I needed was not vengeance, but justice. What I needed was a plan. I drove directly to my lawyer's office instead. Janet Morrison had handled our house purchase, the joyous, hopeful paperwork for Riley's adoption. She was also, I knew, one of the sharpest, most formidable divorce attorneys in the city, though I had never, in my wildest dreams, imagined I would ever need her services for that reason. "Sophia!" Janet looked genuinely surprised when her receptionist showed me into her tastefully appointed office. Her brow furrowed with concern, her experienced eyes quickly assessing my tightly coiled posture, the subtle tremor in my hands. "Is everything all right?" I placed my phone on her sleek, polished desk, its screen a silent testament to the wreckage of my marriage. I slid it towards her, allowing the damning evidence to speak for itself. "I need to file for divorce," I said, my voice steady, devoid of the emotion I felt. "And I need to do it right." Janet listened intently as I explained everything, every discovery, every painful detail of Ethan's calculated deception. She took meticulous notes, asked precise, probing questions, her legal mind already constructing the framework of a case. She was professional, empathetic, but also direct, laying out the stark realities of what I could expect. "With this evidence, Sophia, you have a very strong case for a fault-based divorce due to adultery," she explained, her voice calm and authoritative. That could significantly impact property division and potentially spousal support in your favor." She paused, her gaze softening. "But Sophia, are you sure you don't want to try counseling first? Some marriages can recover from infidelity, given time and commitment." "No," I said, the word emerging with an unshakable firmness that surprised even myself. This wasn't a fleeting mistake, a moment of weakness, a single lapse in judgment that could be salvaged with therapy. This is a deliberate, calculated pattern of lies and betrayal that has been going on for months, maybe longer. He systematically deceived me, humiliated me, and planned to leave me destitute. I deserve better than this, Janet. And my daughter, I continued, my voice gaining strength, my daughter deserves better than growing up watching her mother accept being treated this way. Janet nodded, her expression grim but resolute. "Understood." She began to prepare the preliminary paperwork, her movements efficient and purposeful. "We'll need to move carefully to protect your interests and Riley's. Don't let Ethan know what you've discovered until we have everything in place. You have the advantage of surprise, and we need to use it." I left Janet's office feeling something I hadn't felt in years, a sensation that was both unfamiliar and electrifying. I felt powerful. For too long, I had ceded control, allowing Ethan to make all the important decisions in our marriage. He decided where we lived, how we spent our money, even how we spent our precious free time. I had convinced myself that being accommodating, being agreeable, made me a good wife. I believed I was being supportive, nurturing, the perfect partner. Now the bitter truth dawned on me. What I had perceived as support, he had perceived as invisibility. I had made myself so small, so compliant in my own life, in my own marriage, that Ethan thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequence. He believed I was a passive bystander, easily manipulated, incapable of independent thought or action. He was about to learn that the woman he married, the woman he so carelessly discarded, was still there, beneath the layers of expectation and assumed obedience. And she was much, much stronger than he had ever given her credit for. My journey of quiet strength, born from a brutal betrayal, had just begun. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years, a sharp, almost unsettling lucidity. Ethan was still asleep beside me, his breathing even and deep, utterly oblivious to the storm brewing around him. For a moment, I simply studied his face, a face I had once loved with an intensity that now felt like a distant dream. This man, who I had loved, who I had built a life with, who I had trusted completely, was now a stranger. A carefully constructed facade. How had I missed the signs for so long? The question gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. There would be time for self-recrimination later. Now, there was work to do. While Ethan showered, the sound of the water a rhythmic, monotonous backdrop to my silent mission, I quietly went through his dresser drawers and closet. My hands moved with a methodical precision, searching for anything else I might have missed, any other hidden layers of his deceit. In the pockets of his suit jackets, I found more receipts that told more of the story. Expensive lingerie purchases, gifts of jewelry for someone else, romantic dinner dates at exclusive restaurants. All of this, while he regularly complained to me about our tight budget, suggesting I cut back on my own small, necessary expenses, like a new pair of shoes for Riley or a much-needed haircut for myself. The hypocrisy was a bitter, metallic taste in my mouth. Then, hidden deep in his sock drawer beneath neatly folded pairs of athletic socks, I found it. A second phone. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anticipation and dread. I knew instinctively that this device held the most damning truths of all. My fingers trembled slightly as I turned it on, the screen lighting up to reveal a trove of text messages between Ethan and Victoria. The messages made me feel sick to my stomach, a profound nausea that went beyond the obvious pain of an affair. It was the way they talked about me. "She has no idea," Ethan had texted just 3 days ago, a chillingly casual dismissal of my existence. "She's so focused on Riley and her little part-time job. She doesn't pay attention to anything else." The arrogance, the condescension, the complete underestimation of my intelligence and awareness was a deeper cut than the affair itself. He saw me as a caricature, a one-dimensional figure easily managed and dismissed. Victoria's response was even worse, a cruel echo of his disdain. "When are you going to tell her? I'm tired of being your secret. I want to go public with our relationship. Soon, Ethan had replied, his calculated plan laid bare. I just need to figure out the best way to handle things with the house in custody. She's so dependent on me, she'll be lost without me. Dependent? Lost without him? The words ignited a fresh, scorching wave of anger. The utter delusion, the monumental hubris. I had been managing our entire household, raising our daughter, working part-time to contribute to our finances, all while he played house with his girlfriend, weaving a tangled web of lies. He had no idea who I really was, or what I was truly capable of. His perception of me was a fragile construct of his own ego, and I was about to dismantle it, brick by painful brick. I took photos of every text message, every call log, every incriminating piece of evidence on that second phone, ensuring I had a digital blueprint of his entire deceitful existence. Then, with a chilling calmness, I put it back exactly where I found it, leaving no trace of my discovery. The investigation continued. While Ethan was at work, blissfully unaware that his carefully constructed world was crumbling around him, I drove to Victoria's apartment building. I wasn't planning a confrontation, not yet. I simply needed to see it, to breathe the air of my husband's other life. The building was upscale, modern, far nicer than our family home. Victoria, it was clear, made good money at the marketing firm, a stark contrast to my little part-time job. I sat in my car across the street, a silent observer, watching people come and go, each face a potential stranger in Ethan's secret narrative. Around lunchtime, I saw it. Ethan's familiar car pulling into the parking garage. My husband emerged, a bouquet of flowers in his hand, the same type of flowers he hadn't brought me in over 2 years, and walked into the building, looking entirely at ease, like he belonged there. An hour later, I watched them leave together. They looked, to the casual observer, like a couple deeply in love, holding hands, laughing at some shared secret, their body language radiating an intimacy he had denied me for so long. Victoria was wearing the diamond earrings I had seen in her social media photos, the ones Ethan had bought with our family's money. The sight of them together should have broken my heart, should have sent me spiraling into a pit of despair, but instead, a strange, steely resolve hardened within me. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment, a fleeting mistake, a one-time error. This was a full-blown relationship, complete with affection, gifts, shared intimacy, and a profound, sustained deception that Ethan had meticulously hidden from me for months. This wasn't something to be worked through, and this was a fundamental betrayal that demanded a fundamental response. I followed them to an expensive restaurant downtown, a cruel twist of fate, as it was the very same restaurant where Ethan and I had celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary, a milestone that now felt like a grotesque lie. They sat at a corner table, oblivious to my presence, feeding each other appetizers, acting like teenagers in love, their world a bubble of shared deceit. I took photos from across the street, documenting everything, each click of the camera a confirmation of my resolve. This wasn't just about my pain anymore. It was about building an unassailable case, about ensuring justice for myself and my daughter. That evening, Ethan came home, radiating an unsettling normalcy. He kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day with casual affection, and played with Riley like the devoted father and husband he so expertly pretended to be. His ability to switch between his two lives, to embody two entirely different personas with such seamless ease, was almost impressive in its awfulness, a testament to his profound capacity for deception. "How was work today?" I asked, my voice light, testing the waters, marveling at how easily the lies would flow from his lips. "Busy as always," he said without a flicker of hesitation, his eyes meeting mine with practiced sincerity. "Spent most of the day in meetings about the Henderson project. Really boring stuff." I nodded, my smile unwavering, playing the part of the trusting, naive wife, while inside I was documenting another lie, another betrayal. While he claimed to be ensnared in boring meetings, he had in fact been having a romantic, expensive lunch with his girlfriend at a restaurant that held significant, loving memories for us. The irony was a bitter pill. After dinner, while Ethan helped Riley with her homework, projecting the image of the dedicated father, I continued my relentless accumulation of evidence. I accessed his personal computer, knowing that digital footprints were almost impossible to erase completely. And there, I found more undeniable proof of his meticulously crafted double life: email confirmations for romantic getaways, online purchases for Victoria, clothes, spa treatments, weekend excursions. Most damning, I found draft emails painstakingly composed, where he practiced different ways to ask me for a divorce. The draft emails were the most revealing, a raw, unfiltered glimpse into his manipulative mind. In them, Ethan painted himself as the victim of an unfulfilling marriage. He wrote about feeling unappreciated and unloved, about needing to find happiness elsewhere. He spun a narrative where his affair was somehow my fault, a justified response to my perceived shortcomings as a wife. He made it sound like his betrayal was a consequence of my inability to be the woman he wanted, a cruel twisting of reality designed to shift blame. Reading those words hurt more, in some ways, than seeing him with Victoria, not because I believed them — his accusations were transparently self-serving — but because they revealed how little he respected me. In his mind, I was the problem in our marriage, not his chronic lying, his calculated cheating, his profound lack of integrity. He had dehumanized me, reduced me to a convenient scapegoat for his own selfish desires. But his draft emails also revealed his strategy, his carefully laid plan for a clean exit. He planned to ask for a divorce while making it seem like a mutual decision, a sorrowful but inevitable conclusion to an unhappy chapter. He would suggest couples counseling first, knowing full well it would fail because of his affair, then propose an amicable separation, where we would supposedly split everything fairly. He had no idea, not the slightest inkling, that I already knew about Victoria. He planned to leverage my ignorance, my presumed emotional fragility, against me. He believed he held all the cards. The final piece of evidence I found was, perhaps, the most damaging of all. Hidden deep within his laptop files was a folder labeled, chillingly, New Life. It contained his meticulous financial planning for leaving our marriage. He had been systematically moving money into accounts I didn't know about, preparing to start fresh with Victoria, intending to leave me with as little as possible, financially vulnerable and dependent. The documents showed that Ethan had been planning his exit from our marriage for over 6 months, a meticulously orchestrated betrayal. Every kind word, every family moment, every intimate conversation during that time had been a performance, a cynical charade while he counted down the days until he could leave me for another woman, for his new life. The realization was crushing, yet it also solidified my resolve. He hadn't just cheated, he had carefully, coldly planned my downfall. But his planning, I realized with a grim satisfaction, had a major, fatal flaw. He had assumed I would never discover his affair, that I would be completely blindsided by his request for divorce, and that I would be too emotional, too dependent, too naive to protect myself legally. He had built his entire strategy around the idea that I was weak and incapable. Tomorrow, I vowed, I would show him exactly how wrong he was about the woman he had underestimated for so long. As I closed his laptop, carefully erasing any trace of my investigation, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, a profound sense of self-reclamation. I felt like myself again, not Ethan's wife, not solely Riley's mother, but Sophia, a strong, intelligent woman who deserved so much better than the lies and betrayal she had been living with. Ethan thought he was going to control the narrative of our divorce, dictate the terms of our separation, but he had no idea that I was already 3 steps ahead of him, armed with irrefutable truth and a newfound formidable strength. The game, as he knew it, was about to change. The next day was Saturday, and I woke up with a sense of purpose that had been a stranger to me for years, a quiet hum of determination vibrating beneath my skin. Ethan was planning to spend the day doing yard work, a perfectly convenient excuse for him to be out of the house, giving me the crucial opportunity to prepare for what was coming. Riley, sensing perhaps the subtle tension in the air or simply excited for her social calendar, was invited to a sleepover at her friend's house. This meant I would have the evening alone with my lying husband, the perfect undisturbed stage for the inevitable confrontation. I drove Riley to her friend's house, hugging her a little tighter than usual, inhaling the sweet scent of her hair, imprinting her innocence in my memory. Soon, her world was going to shift, fundamentally and irrevocably. But I was fiercely determined to make sure she felt loved, secure, and protected through everything that was about to happen. shielding her as much as possible from the fallout of her father's choices. "Have fun tonight, sweetheart," I told her, my voice thick with emotion, but my smile unwavering. "Mommy loves you very much." "Love you too, Mom," she said, her carefree voice a bittersweet melody as she bounded off to play with her friends, utterly unaware that her parents' marriage was about to end, that the life she knew was on the brink of profound change. On my way home, I made a stop at the grocery store. My list was carefully curated, everything I needed to make Ethan's favorite meal. Grilled salmon with a delicate lemon butter sauce, perfectly roasted seasonal vegetables, and for dessert, his beloved chocolate cake. If he wanted to play the part of the devoted, hard-working husband, then I, Sophia, would play the part of the perfect, doting wife one last time. But this performance, unlike all the others, had a very specific, devastating purpose. I wanted Ethan completely relaxed, utterly unsuspecting, when I presented him with the undeniable truth of what I knew and what was going to happen next. I spent the afternoon cooking, the mundane tasks a calming balm to my simmering anger. The sizzle of the salmon, the aroma of garlic and herbs, the sweet scent of chocolate cake baking, each domestic ritual was infused with a cold, steely resolve. Every time Ethan came inside for a glass of water, his brow furrowed from the effort of his yard work, or to check on my progress, I smiled, my eyes bright, and asked about his activities. He seemed pleased, even touched by my efforts, probably thinking his beautiful wife was showing appreciation for all his hard work and his dedication to our family. If only he knew that I was, in fact, preparing his last meal as my husband, a culinary farewell to our shared life. While the cake was cooling, filling the kitchen with its rich, comforting aroma, I meticulously organized all the evidence I had gathered. Bank statements, credit card receipts, damning photos, screenshots of their intimate text messages, phone records detailing hundreds of calls and texts, every single piece of proof that meticulously outlined his affair and his elaborate tapestry of lies. I also printed out the divorce papers Janet had prepared, along with a detailed list of assets and debts that would need to be divided. Each document was placed neatly, precisely into a manila folder, ready for its grand unveiling. I set the dining room table with our best china, the crystal gleaming under the soft glow of flickering candles. I arranged everything to look romantic, special, a perfect stage for the final act. Ethan would undoubtedly believe I was trying to reconnect with him, to rekindle a flame he had long extinguished with his deception. He would never suspect that I was, in reality, saying a permanent goodbye. At 6 o'clock, I called Ethan in from the yard. He emerged, sweaty and dusty, but his eyes widened slightly in surprise as he took in the elaborate table setting, the delicious smells wafting from the kitchen. "What's all this for?" he asked, and I could almost see the wheels turning in his mind, mentally sifting through anniversaries or birthdays he might have forgotten. "Can a wife make a special dinner for her husband?" I said sweetly, playing my role perfectly, the words a carefully delivered line in my final performance. Ethan, clearly interpreting this as some kind of romantic gesture, or perhaps a peace offering, went to shower and changed into a crisp, nice shirt. When he came downstairs, I had everything ready. Wine poured, candles lit, his favorite meal beautifully plated. "This looks amazing, Sophia," he said, his voice genuinely touched, a flicker of sentimentality in his eyes. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble at all," I replied, sitting down across from him, my heart a complex mix of sorrow and steely resolve. I wanted tonight to be special. We made polite small talk during the first course, a superficial dance around the truth, and I could see Ethan relaxing, his guard dropping. He probably believed his loving wife was about to suggest a romantic evening, perhaps even discuss a vacation or plan something special for our upcoming anniversary, a future that, in his mind, still included us. Instead, I watched him enjoy what would be his last meal in our home as my husband, the final repast before his world, too, irrevocably changed. "You seem happy tonight," Ethan said as I cleared the dinner plates, a faint smile playing on his lips. "It's nice to see you smiling so much." "I am happy," I said, and to my surprise, the words were utterly, profoundly true. Honestly, I feel like I'm finally seeing things clearly. When I brought out the rich chocolate cake, Ethan's eyes lit up with genuine pleasure. "You made my favorite. What did I do to deserve all this?" "You've been working so hard lately," I said, cutting him a generous slice, the knife moving with deliberate precision. "All those late nights, weekend work trips, emergency projects, you deserve to be appreciated." Ethan had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable at the mention of his work schedule, a fleeting shadow of guilt crossing his face. But he recovered quickly, his practiced performance kicking in. "The firm has been really demanding this year, but it's all worth it for our family." The words, once a source of comfort, now felt like a venomous insult. I placed his dessert in front of him, a symbol of sweetness to mask the bitter truth, along with a manila folder tied with a delicate decorative ribbon. "What's this?" he asked, his confusion evident as he eyed the unexpected addition. "Open it," I said, my voice calm, almost serene, as I sat back down with my own untouched piece of cake, ready to watch his world shatter. Ethan untied the ribbon, his movements slow, expectant, a slight smile still lingering on his lips. He opened the folder. I watched his face, meticulously charting every micro-expression as he saw the first document. A bank statement with his charges at Victoria's apartment building, highlighted in stark yellow. His fork, laden with his favorite chocolate cake, halted halfway to his mouth. The smile vanished. His eyes, wide with dawning horror, met mine. In that precise moment, I could see the exact instant he realized what was happening, the moment his carefully constructed facade began to crumble. "Keep looking," I said calmly, taking a deliberate bite of my cake, savoring the bitter sweetness, the taste of my own reclaimed power. "There's more." His hands were shaking noticeably now, a tremor that betrayed the composure he always strived to project. He flipped through the evidence, each document a fresh blow. Credit card statements detailing his purchases for Victoria, photos of them together, intimate and undeniable, at restaurants that held our memories, screenshots of their explicit text messages, hundreds of them, laid bare for his eyes, phone records showing the sheer volume and frequency of their calls and texts. The color drained from his face as he absorbed the sheer extent of what I had discovered, the meticulous depth of my investigation. "Sophia, I can explain," he started, his voice a desperate, pleading whisper, an echo of the countless lies he had spun. "No need?" I said, holding up my hand, cutting him off with a firmness that left no room for negotiation. My voice remained steady, a calm counterpoint to his unraveling. "Keep looking. The best part is at the bottom." He flipped to the very last document in the folder, the divorce papers. My signature was already in place, bold and resolute, waiting for his. You want a divorce?" he asked, his voice barely audible, thick with shock and disbelief. The question hung in the air, laden with the weight of 12 years, of a future he had already abandoned. "I want a lot of things, Ethan," I said, maintaining my calm, even tone, refusing to allow him to see the raw emotion that still simmered beneath my carefully constructed exterior. "I want honesty. I want respect. I want a partner who doesn't lie to me every single day, for months on end, while planning to leave me for another woman. Since you clearly can't provide any of those things, yes, I want a divorce." Ethan set the folder down, his hands falling to his lap. Useless. He looked at me, really looked at me, as if seeing me for the very first time, seeing the woman he had so profoundly underestimated, the woman who had finally stepped out of his shadow. "How long have you known?" "Riley found your hotel key card in your jacket pocket," I explained, the simple truth a devastating weapon. "Instead of going to your parents' anniversary party, I spent the afternoon investigating my own husband. It didn't take long to find everything." "The hotel," he said weakly, the word a confession. "Room 327, I affirmed, leaving no room for doubt. "I know all about Victoria, Ethan. I know about the lunches, the gifts, the weekend getaways, the apartment visits, the secret phone, the money you've been hiding. I know everything." The finality of my declaration hung heavy in the air, a bell tolling the end of our marriage. Ethan was quiet for a long, agonizing moment, staring down at the irrefutable evidence of his betrayal, his mind racing, desperately trying to figure out an escape route, a way to spin this, to minimize the damage. When he finally looked up, I could see the gears turning, his manipulative mind searching for an angle. "Sophia, listen to me," he said, leaning forward, trying to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. This thing with Victoria, it just happened. I never meant for it to go this far. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. Stop, I said firmly, my voice cutting through his feeble attempts at damage control. Don't insult me with more lies. I've seen your text messages. I've seen your financial planning. This has been going on for months, Ethan. Months. And you've been meticulously planning to leave me, to start a new life, while making it look like it was a mutual decision, a sorrowful but amicable parting. You planned to leave me with virtually nothing. His face flushed a deep, telltale red as he realized the full extent of my knowledge, the depth of my preparation. His carefully constructed fantasy was crumbling around him. I want you to sign the divorce papers tonight, I continued, my voice unwavering, devoid of any emotional appeal. You can stay in the guest room until you find somewhere else to live, but our marriage is over. There is no going back. What about Riley? What about everything we've built together? He asked desperately, a sudden panic in his eyes, as if the consequences were only just dawning on him. You should have thought about that before you decided to build a secret life with another woman, using our family's money, manipulating our child's mother, I replied, my voice sharp with a righteous indignation. Riley will be fine. She deserves to see her mother standing up for herself, asserting her worth instead of accepting betrayal and lies. Ethan stared at me for another long, silent moment, and I could see him processing this new version of his wife, a Sophia he had never encountered, never allowed himself to see. The woman sitting across from him wasn't the accommodating, trusting, easily swayed person he thought he had married, the one he had molded to fit his own narrative. This woman was strong, she was prepared, she was resolute, and she was, unequivocally, done with his lies. Sign the papers, Ethan, I said again, the words a final, unyielding ultimatum. It's over. Ethan pushed the chocolate cake away, his favorite, now utterly untouched, a symbolic rejection of the sweetness of our shared life. He picked up the divorce papers again, his hands shaking noticeably as he read through the terms Janet had so expertly drafted. I watched him closely, seeing the moment he fully grasped that this wasn't going to be the amicable, controlled divorce he had so meticulously planned, the convenient, consequence-free exit he had envisioned. These terms are ridiculous, Sophia, he said finally, his voice laced with indignation, trying to revert to his old tactic of gaslighting and blame. You're asking for the house, primary custody of Riley, and half of everything, including my retirement accounts. He sounded outraged, as if he were the victim. I'm asking for what I deserve after 12 years of marriage, building a home, raising our daughter, and supporting your career, all while you played house with your girlfriend and systematically betrayed my trust. I replied calmly, my voice maintaining its even keel. Those terms are, in fact, quite fair, Ethan, especially considering I could ask for significantly more based on your documented adultery and your blatant financial deception. You can't prove adultery in court just because, he started, attempting to dismiss my evidence, his arrogance reasserting itself. I can prove everything, Ethan, I interrupted, my finger tapping the folder, emphasizing the mountain of evidence it contained. I have photos, financial records, text messages, hotel receipts, and a witness. What witness? He scoffed, trying to regain control, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. Your 8-year-old daughter who found your hotel keycard in your jacket pocket and asked me why Daddy had a room somewhere else, I said, watching him flinch, the color draining from his face once more. The image of Riley, small and confused, was a devastating blow. Do you really want to put Riley through a custody battle where she has to testify about finding evidence of your affair, about your lies, about the wreckage you created? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, the bluster gone, his mind clearly racing, calculating his options, weighing the potential damage. He was finally realizing that his careful planning, his elaborate machinations, meant absolutely nothing because I held all the cards. His control was an illusion, shattered by my unwavering resolve. Now this isn't you, Sophia, he said, trying a different approach, softening his tone, attempting to appeal to the old me. You're angry right now, and I understand that, but you're not a vindictive person. We can work this out reasonably, surely. You're right, I said, a slight humorless smile touching my lips. I'm not normally vindictive. I'm usually understanding and forgiving, and willing to see the best in people, even when they don't deserve it. I'm usually accommodating. But you know what else I'm not, Ethan? I'm not stupid. And I'm not weak. My voice rose slightly, imbued with a newfound authority. And I'm certainly not going to let you control the situation the way you've controlled our entire marriage. I never controlled our marriage, he sputtered, truly astonished by my accusation. So deeply ingrained was his own narrative of benevolent leadership. Really? I stood up and walked to our kitchen bulletin board, a testament to our shared life, now exposed as a tool of his subtle dominance. I pulled down a faded piece of paper. This is the budget you created for our household expenses. I held it up. Notice how it includes ample money for your golf membership, your expensive business lunches that were often Victoria lunches, and your weekend trips. But I had to ask permission, practically beg, to buy a $20 pair of shoes for Riley. I pulled down another piece of paper, a printout of a vacation itinerary. This is the vacation plan you made for last summer. Notice how we went to the beach resort you wanted to visit, stayed at the hotel you chose, and did the activities you were interested in. When I suggested the mountain cabin I wanted to try, you immediately said we couldn't afford it. I walked back to the table and sat down, laying the papers before him. This is our social calendar that you meticulously organized. Notice how we always see your friends, go to your work events, and visit your family every holiday. But we haven't seen my college friends in over 2 years, and you complained the entire time we went to my sister's birthday party last year. Ethan was staring at me, his mouth slightly agape, as if I were speaking a foreign language, a dialect he had never learned, never cared to understand. Sophia, those were practical decisions, he began, attempting to rationalize, to minimize. No, Ethan, those were controlling decisions, I corrected, my voice sharp with the clarity of long-suppressed truth. You've been making unilateral choices about our life together while subtly, expertly, making me feel like I had input, like my opinion mattered. The only difference between your marriage planning and your divorce planning is that now I know what you're doing. I see the manipulation, the subtle control, the systemic subjugation, and I refuse to be a part of it any longer. I could see him trying to process this version of me, a woman he had never truly known, never allowed himself to see. For 12 years, I had been the accommodating wife, the peacemaker, the one who went along with his preferences to keep the peace, to maintain the illusion of harmony. He had no idea how to handle a woman who was finally standing up for herself, demanding her due, asserting her boundaries. "Sophia, please," he said, his voice softer, almost pleading, as he reached across the table toward my hand. "Let's not do this. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. I can change." I pulled my hand away, recoiling from his touch, the physical contact a fresh reminder of his betrayal. Why would I want to work through your betrayal so you can learn to lie to me more effectively next time, so you can become a more cunning deceiver? I would end things with Victoria. I would commit to making our marriage work. I promise, he insisted, desperation coloring his tone. Because you got caught, Ethan, I said, the truth cutting through his hollow promises. Not because you realized you were wrong. Not because you missed me, not because you genuinely wanted to be a better husband, but because you got caught, and now you're desperately trying to minimize the consequences to avoid facing the reality of your actions. Ethan was quiet again, the silence stretching between us, heavy with his unspoken defeat. I could see him running out of arguments, his carefully constructed facade finally crumbling under the weight of my truth. "Do you love her?" I asked, the question seemingly surprising him, catching him off guard. "What?" he stammered, thrown by the directness of my query. "Victoria," I clarified, my gaze unwavering. "Do you love her?" He looked down at his hands, his usual self-assurance completely gone. "Sophia, that's not—" "It's a simple question, Ethan," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "Do you love the woman you've been cheating on me with, the woman you've been building a new life with our money?" After a long, agonizing pause, he nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, a silent admission of the truth. "Yes." "Then why are you sitting here trying to save a marriage you clearly wanted to leave anyway?" I asked, the absurdity of his efforts suddenly apparent. "Sign the papers, Ethan. Go be with the woman you love. Let me find someone who actually wants to be with me, someone who values honesty and respect, someone who doesn't use me as a convenient scapegoat for their own selfish desires." "It's not that simple, Sophia," he began, clinging to the last vestiges of his control. "It is exactly that simple," I said firmly, standing up, the finality of my actions echoing in the quiet room. I began clearing the dinner dishes, the clinking of china, a stark punctuation to the end of our shared life. You made your choice when you started the affair. You made your choice when you spent our money on another woman. You made your choice when you lied to me every single day for months. Now I'm making mine. I placed the dishes in the sink, the mundane act a powerful statement of my resolve. You can sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow you can start looking for an apartment. I want you moved out within 2 weeks. What about Riley? He asked, his voice cracking, a last-ditch attempt to leverage our daughter against me. Riley will stay with me, in the house she's always known as home, I stated, leaving no room for negotiation. You can see her on weekends and holidays, assuming you can fit her into your schedule with Victoria. Ethan finally signed the divorce papers, his signature shaky and uncertain, a stark contrast to the bold, resolute strokes of my own. As he wrote his name, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a profound sense of liberation I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The suffocating burden of his lies, of his carefully constructed illusion, was finally gone. I need to call Victoria, he said quietly, his voice hollow, defeated. I need to explain what's happening. No, I said firmly, turning from the sink, my gaze piercing. You don't get to discuss our private business with your girlfriend. You can tell her you're getting divorced, but the details of our separation, the terms of our split, are strictly between us. They are not fodder for her curiosity, nor yours. Sophia, he tried again, a flicker of his old arrogance returning. Those are my terms, Ethan, I interrupted, unwavering. Take them, or I will make this process much, much more difficult and painful for everyone involved, especially you. And I have all the evidence to do it. He nodded reluctantly, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He went upstairs to pack some clothes for the guest room, the sound of his footsteps a heavy, mournful echo in the once vibrant home. I finished cleaning the kitchen, putting away the good china, carefully wrapping each piece, feeling like I was meticulously closing a chapter of my life that I had, perhaps, outgrown long ago without even realizing it. The air in the house already felt lighter, cleaner, purged of the suffocating weight of his deception. Later that night, as I lay alone in our bedroom, in our bed for the first time in 12 years, I didn't feel sad, or scared, or lonely. I felt something else, something unexpected and profoundly liberating. I felt free. For the first time in years, perhaps even decades, I could make decisions based purely on what I wanted, what I needed, instead of constantly calibrating my actions to keep Ethan happy, to maintain the fragile peace of a marriage built on lies. Tomorrow, I knew with an exhilarating certainty, I would start building a new life for Riley and me. A life based on honesty, on mutual respect, on the unwavering knowledge that I deserved so much better than what I had been accepting, what I had so passively allowed. The woman Ethan had underestimated, the woman he had tried to diminish, was about to show him exactly what she was capable of achieving, entirely on her own. And that, I realized with a quiet, fierce joy, was going to be my most profound revenge. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, a rare occurrence, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Excitement. Excitement about the day ahead, about the sheer, unbridled possibility of it all. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I could make plans, big or small, without considering what Ethan would think, what he would prefer, what would fit into his meticulously crafted schedule. My choices were my own. I made coffee, the rich aroma filling the quiet kitchen, and sat at the table, a new notebook open before me. I began to make a list, not of chores or obligations, but of actions to reclaim my life. Called Janet to file the divorce papers. Change the locks on the house, a symbolic and practical act of demarcation. Open my own bank accounts, severing the financial ties that bound me. Update my emergency contacts at Riley's school, signaling a new family dynamic. Start planning a life that belonged entirely to me. Each item on the list felt like a step towards liberation, a brick laid in the foundation of my new existence. Ethan came downstairs around 8, looking like he hadn't slept much. His hair was messy, his eyes red-rimmed and shadowed, making him look older, wearier than his 36 years. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a defeated weariness. "We need to talk about telling Riley," he said, pouring himself coffee, his hands shaking slightly, betraying the turmoil within him. "We need to tell her the truth," I replied, my voice calm but firm, laying out the difficult path ahead. "That you made choices that hurt our family, choices that broke important promises, and that Mommy and Daddy are going to live in different houses now, but we both still love her very much." The simple explanation, stripped of judgment, conveyed the reality without the messy details. "You're going to tell an 8-year-old that I had an affair?" he asked, his voice laced with disbelief and a renewed sense of self-preservation. "I'm going to tell her that you broke promises you made to our family, promises you made to me," I corrected, staring directly into his bloodshot eyes. "She's smart, Ethan. She already knows something is wrong. Children always know. They absorb the unspoken tensions, the hidden currents of unhappiness, even when we try to shield them." Ethan sat down across from me, looking utterly defeated, his head in his hands. "How do we do this without destroying her? We put her needs first, which is something you should have thought about before you started your relationship with Victoria, before you started planning your exit," I said, the words sharp, unapologetic. "Riley will be fine, Ethan. She'll be more than fine, because she'll have one parent who is honest with her, one parent who puts her needs first, and who is strong enough to build a happy, stable life for her." My phone rang, interrupting our tense conversation. It was Patricia. "Sophia, what's going on? Riley called me this morning asking if she could stay here longer because she's worried about you and Ethan fighting." I looked at Ethan, who had the grace to look profoundly ashamed, the reality of his actions reverberating through our daughter. "Can I pick her up in an hour? We need to have a family conversation." "Of course." Patricia's voice was gentle, understanding. "Is there anything I can do?" "Just love us through this," I said, my voice softer, allowing a flicker of my vulnerability to show. "Everything is going to be okay. We will make it okay." After I hung up, Ethan tried one more time, a desperate, final attempt to cling to the wreckage of our marriage. "Sophia, please reconsider. We could try separation first, maybe counseling." "Stop!" I said firmly, cutting him off, my patience worn thin. "You don't get to negotiate anymore, Ethan. You made your choices, and now you live with the consequences. There is no turning back." I drove to Patricia's house to pick up Riley, mentally rehearsing how to explain divorce to an 8-year-old, searching for the right words, the right tone, to convey such a profound shift without causing undue fear or blame. When I arrived, Patricia pulled me aside, her eyes full of concern. "Riley said you seemed upset yesterday, and she's been worried all night," Patricia whispered, her voice low. "She's such a sensitive kid." "She's going to be okay," I asserted, conviction in my voice. "It might be hard for a while, but she's going to see her mother standing strong and making good decisions for both of us. She's going to learn resilience." Riley ran to me the moment she saw me, wrapping her arms tightly around my waist, her small body a comforting weight against mine. "Mom, are you okay? You seemed sad yesterday." "I'm actually better than I've been in a long time, sweetheart," I said honestly, meeting her gaze, conveying a sense of genuine calm that surprised even myself. "But Daddy and I need to talk to you about some changes that are going to happen in our family." The drive home was quiet, filled with an unspoken tension. Riley, with the acute intuition children possess regarding adult problems, sensed the seriousness of whatever was coming. When we got to the house, Ethan was waiting in the living room, looking nervous, guilty, and utterly uncomfortable. "Riley, come sit with us," I said gently, guiding her to the couch. "We have something important to tell you." She sat between us, her small body dwarfed by our adult forms, looking back and forth between our faces, her innocent eyes trying to decipher the unreadable emotions playing across our features. "Sometimes when grown-ups get married," I began, choosing my words carefully, drawing on the simplest, most fundamental truths, they promise to love and take care of each other forever. But sometimes people change, and those promises get broken. It's a very sad thing, and it makes people very unhappy. "Are you getting divorced?" Riley asked quietly, her small voice cutting through the carefully constructed narrative, hitting us both with the blunt force of a child's direct perception. Her question surprised both Ethan and me. "How do you know about divorce, baby?" I asked, genuinely curious and a little heartbroken by her precocious understanding. "Emma's parents got divorced last year," she explained, her voice matter-of-fact. "She said they fought a lot, and then her dad moved to an apartment." I looked at Ethan, who was staring down at his hands, unable to meet my gaze. unable to face the direct consequence of his actions embodied in our daughter. "Yes, sweetheart. Daddy and I are getting divorced," I confirmed, the words final, irrevocable. "Is it because of me?" she asked, and my heart broke a little, a familiar pang of maternal anguish. This was the fear, the ultimate unspoken fear of every child of divorce. "No, baby," I said, pulling her closer, enveloping her in a tight hug, needing her to feel the absolute truth of my words. "This has absolutely nothing to do with you. You are the best thing that ever happened to both of us, and nothing will ever change how much we love you. This is about adult choices." "Then why are you getting divorced?" Her simple query demanded an honest answer, stripped of evasions. I chose my words with immense care, aiming for clarity without blame. "Daddy made some choices that hurt our family, choices that broke important promises. When people break those kinds of promises, sometimes the only way to fix things, to find happiness again, is to make new arrangements." Riley was quiet for a moment, processing this heavy information, her young mind grappling with concepts far beyond her years. "Will I still see Daddy?" "Of course," Ethan said, speaking for the first time, his voice rough with emotion, his eyes finally meeting hers. "I'll always be your dad, and I'll always love you. I just won't live in this house anymore." "Where will you live?" "I'll find an apartment nearby, and you can visit me on weekends and holidays," he promised, his voice earnest. Riley nodded solemnly, seemingly understanding more than an 8-year-old should ever have to. "Can I still have sleepovers with Emma?" "Yes, baby. Your life is going to stay as normal as possible," I reassured her, a promise I intended to keep. After we finished talking with Riley, she went upstairs to play, seemingly handling the news better than I had expected. Children, I realized, are often far more resilient, far more perceptive than adults give them credit for. "She took that well," Ethan observed, a flicker of surprise in his voice. "She's been preparing for this conversation without realizing it," I replied, the truth stinging slightly. Kids always know when something is wrong at home. They feel the tension, the distance, the unspoken unhappiness. The rest of the day was awkward but civil. Ethan packed more clothes and personal items, his movements stiff and subdued, while I began the systemic process of separating our lives. I called the bank to remove him from our joint checking account and opened a new account solely in my name, a small but significant act of financial independence. I called our insurance company to understand how the divorce would affect our coverage, navigating the complex world of legal separation. I called Riley's school to update them on our family situation, ensuring they understood the changes without oversharing. Each phone call, each small administrative task, felt like taking back a piece of my independence that I had given up, subtly and unconsciously, without even realizing it. I was reclaiming my agency, one phone call at a time. That evening, after Riley had gone to bed, settled into the comforting routine of her familiar room, Ethan tried one last conversation, a final attempt to mend what was irrevocably broken. "I know you don't believe me, but I am sorry, Sophia. I never wanted to hurt you. I truly didn't." "You're right," I said, my voice steady, devoid of the emotional charge I might once have imbued it with. "I don't believe you. If you truly didn't want to hurt me, you wouldn't have had an affair. You wouldn't have systematically lied to me for months. You would have talked to me about whatever problems you thought we had, instead of seeking solace and intimacy elsewhere. You would have been honest, instead of living a carefully constructed double life." "I was scared to talk to you," he countered, a familiar deflection, a convenient excuse. "I thought you would be devastated." "So instead," I retorted, my voice rising slightly with incredulity, "you decided to lie to me for months, spend our family's money on another woman, and meticulously plan to leave me, financially vulnerable and emotionally blindsided? That was your solution to not wanting to devastate me? That's a curious definition of protection, Ethan." He didn't have an answer for that, his gaze falling away from mine, unable to meet the truth in my eyes. "The truth is, Ethan, you weren't thinking about me at all," I continued, stating the unvarnished truth. "You were thinking about yourself and what you wanted, and you conveniently convinced yourself that your elaborate lies were somehow protecting me. But they weren't. They were protecting you from having to deal with the uncomfortable consequences of your own selfish choices." The words hung in the air, undeniable and final. Our conversation and our marriage was truly over. 2 weeks later, Ethan moved into a one-bedroom apartment across town. Riley, with her astonishing resilience, helped him pack his books and pictures, treating it like an adventure rather than a tragedy. Her innocent perspective a balm to my raw emotions. Her ability to adapt, to find joy amidst upheaval, amazed me every single day. The house felt different with him gone, not empty but peaceful. A quiet serenity had settled over the rooms, replacing the underlying tension and unspoken sadness that had permeated our home for so long. For the first time in years, I could arrange the furniture the way I liked it, watch the TV shows I enjoyed, and cook the meals I wanted without constantly considering someone else's preferences, someone else's dictates. I was learning to be myself again, shedding the skin of Ethan's wife, and it felt wonderful, liberating. 3 months after Ethan moved out, I barely recognized my own life, transformed as it was by a whirlwind of newfound purpose and self-discovery. The woman who had been afraid to buy a pair of shoes without permission had, with a fierce determination, enrolled in graduate school, redecorated the entire house to reflect our personalities, and bravely started a small business doing freelance marketing consulting. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and deeply fulfilling. "Mom, you seem different," Riley observed one morning over breakfast, her keen eyes assessing me with a child's brutal honesty. "You smile more now." "Do I?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. I felt lighter, happier, more genuinely myself than I had in years, more like the vibrant person I used to be before I lost myself in the relentless pursuit of being the perfect wife. "Yeah, and you sing in the kitchen now?" she added, her voice full of a child's simple joy. "You didn't used to do that." She was right. I had started singing again, old forgotten melodies bubbling up from a place I hadn't realized still existed within me. I was rediscovering parts of myself, small joys and creative impulses that I had forgotten existed, buried under years of compromise and self-negation. My friendship with Patricia, my steadfast sister, had grown even stronger during the tumultuous divorce process. She had been my unwavering rock, watching Riley whenever I had urgent meetings with lawyers, listening patiently as I processed my anger and hurt, and celebrating every small victory with me, cheering me on as I navigated the treacherous waters of separation and rebuilding. "I'm so proud of you," she told me one afternoon as we watched Riley play in her sun-drenched backyard, a peaceful scene that spoke volumes of our new tranquility. "You've handled this whole thing with such grace and strength, Sophia. It's truly inspiring." "I don't feel graceful," I admitted, a flicker of the old vulnerability surfacing. "Some days I'm still angry, Patricia. Some days I wonder if I should have tried harder to save my marriage, if there was something I missed." "Some days feeling angry is healthy, Sophia," Patricia said, her wisdom a gentle balm. "And questioning yourself just shows that you're a thoughtful, reflective person. But Sophia, you didn't break your marriage. Ethan did. You're just refusing to pretend it isn't broken anymore. You're choosing truth over illusion, and that takes immense courage." Her words resonated deep within me, validating my choices, affirming my path. The divorce proceedings were going remarkably smoothly, largely because of my meticulous preparation. Janet, my lawyer, had been genuinely impressed with the extensive evidence I had gathered and the organized documentation I had meticulously compiled. Ethan's lawyer had, as expected, tried to negotiate different terms, attempting to secure a more favorable settlement for him, but the irrefutable evidence of his affair and his blatant financial deception made my position unassailable, profoundly strong. "Your husband's attorney is pushing for joint custody and a more even split of assets," Janet told me during one of our meetings, outlining the legal chess game. "But given the adultery and the financial records clearly showing he was preparing to leave you with minimal support, I think we can maintain our current terms. Your case is airtight." "I don't want to be vindictive, Janet," I clarified, making sure my intentions were clear. "I just want to be fair. Ethan can see Riley whenever he wants, and I believe he should be a consistent presence in her life. But her primary home should be with me, where she feels stable and secure, and I deserve half of everything we built together during our 12 years of marriage, including the house and his retirement. That's not vindictive, it's just equitable." "And that's exactly what we're asking for," Janet assured me, her eyes twinkling with admiration. "Nothing more, nothing less. You're demanding your worth, Sophia, and that's a powerful thing. Meanwhile, my consulting business was taking off faster than I had ever dared to expect. Word had spread like wildfire about my marketing skills, my ability to deliver tangible results, and I was soon getting more clients than I could comfortably handle working part-time. For the first time in years, I was earning my own money, making my own professional decisions, charting my own career path. It was exhilarating, empowering, a profound affirmation of my capabilities. "You should really consider doing this full-time," my client Rebecca suggested one afternoon after I had helped her double her online sales in just 2 months, her voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. "You have a real gift for this work, Sophia. It's clear." "I'm thinking about it," I admitted, a smile playing on my lips. "I want to make sure Riley still has enough of my attention, but I absolutely love working again. I love the challenge, the creativity, the sense of accomplishment." "Working mothers raise strong daughters, Sophia," Rebecca said, her words resonating deeply with me. "Riley is watching you build something incredible for yourself. That's a powerful lesson she'll carry with her for life." She was right. Riley indeed had become more independent, more confident, as she watched me take decisive control of my life. She would often help me with small tasks for my business, sorting papers or organizing my desk, feeling a tangible pride when I acquired new clients. She seemed to enjoy our quieter evenings at home, just the two of us, filled with laughter, conversation, and a new sense of peace. My relationship with Ethan had settled into a polite but distant co-parenting arrangement, a pragmatic truce for the sake of our daughter. He picked up Riley every other weekend and called her twice a week. Their relationship, I was relieved to observe, seemed strong and stable, which, despite everything that had happened between us, was profoundly important to me. I wanted Riley to have a loving relationship with her father, even if that love was now mediated by distance and clear boundaries. "How are things with Victoria?" I asked him one day when he came to pick up Riley. The question prompted not by any lingering jealousy, but by a pragmatic need to understand who was in my daughter's orbit. I wasn't asking because I cared about their relationship. I was asking because I needed to know what kind of influence she might have on Riley. "We're taking things slowly," he said, looking visibly uncomfortable with the question, a fleeting flicker of his old evasiveness returning. "Riley mentioned meeting her," I stated, making it clear I was aware. "I hope you understand that I need to know who is around my daughter, what kind of people are influencing her." "Of course, Sophia," he said, his voice softer, more genuine. "Victoria she's a good person, Sophia. I know you don't want to hear that, but she cares about Riley." I nodded, appreciating his moment of honesty, even if the situation still carried a faint echo of pain. "As long as Riley is safe and happy, that's what matters to me." And it was true. My initial, searing anger toward Ethan had slowly, gradually faded, transforming into something more akin to a weary disappointment. I no longer spent time wondering what I could have done differently, or whether our marriage could have been saved. I was simply too busy building a vibrant new life, a future filled with purpose and joy, to waste precious energy dwelling on the wreckage of the old one. One evening, while I was immersed in crafting a marketing proposal for a new client, and Riley was diligently doing her homework at the kitchen table, she looked up at me with a serious, thoughtful expression. "Mom, are you going to get married again?" The question, so direct and unexpected, surprised me. "I don't know, sweetheart," I admitted honestly, a soft smile touching my lips. "Right now, I'm focused on you and my work and making our life good, just the two of us. Why do you ask?" "Emma's mom got married again," she explained, her voice tinged with a child's uncomplicated observation. "And Emma really likes her new stepdad. He taught her how to ride a bike without training wheels." "How do you feel about that possibility?" I asked carefully, wanting to gauge her genuine reaction, to ensure she felt heard and respected in any potential future decision. Riley was quiet for a moment, considering the question with the seriousness that children often bring to important topics. "I think it would be okay if you found someone who makes you happy," she said finally, her brow furrowed in thought, "but only if he's nice to me too. Any man who wants to be in our life would have to be very, very nice to you," I said, pulling her close, ruffling her hair. "You're the most important person in my world, Riley. That will never, ever change." "I know," she said matter-of-factly, returning to her homework, her trust in my words absolute. "You tell me every day." That night, After Riley had gone to bed, settled deep in her dreams, I sat on the couch with a warm cup of tea and simply looked around at the life I had created, a life that was slowly but surely taking on the vibrant hues of my own personality. The house was decorated exactly the way I liked it, with bright, cheerful colors and comfortable, inviting furniture. My laptop was open on the coffee table, its screen displaying the marketing proposal I was working on for a new client, a testament to my burgeoning career. Family photos adorned the walls, not of a strained, unhappy marriage, but of Riley and me smiling together at the zoo, at her school events, at the beautiful beach vacation we had taken, just the two of us, a journey of shared joy and independence. For the first time in years, I felt a deep, abiding pride in my life. Not pride in how well I accommodated someone else's needs, but pride in what I had accomplished on my own, through my own strength and resilience. I was no longer Ethan's accommodating wife, no longer a woman defined solely by her marriage. I was Sophia, a successful businesswoman, a devoted mother, and most importantly, a strong, self-possessed person who had taken decisive control of her own story. And the best part, I realized with a profound sense of gratitude, was that this was just the beginning. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing marketing plans for a new, exciting client. I saw Ethan's mother's name, Margaret, flash across my phone screen, and I hesitated before answering, a slight uncertainty stirring within me. Margaret had always been kind, genuinely so, throughout my marriage to Ethan, a warm and supportive figure, but I wasn't sure how she felt about the divorce, about her son's profound betrayal. Family dynamics could be so complicated, so fractured by such events. "Hello, Margaret," I said carefully, choosing my words with a new guarded politeness. "Sophia, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling." Her voice was firm, yet gentle, a familiar cadence. "I wanted to talk to you about something important." "Of course, what can I do for you?" "I need you to know that Richard and I," she began, referring to Ethan's father, "we don't approve of what Ethan did to you and Riley. We raised him better than that. This is not the son we thought we had." The words surprised me deeply. I had braced myself for judgment, for polite neutrality, perhaps even for them to take Ethan's side. Instead, I heard raw, parental disappointment, a clear condemnation of his actions. "That's very kind of you to say, Margaret," I managed, a lump forming in my throat. "It's not kind, Sophia, it's honest," Margaret said firmly, her voice imbued with an unshakable conviction. "What he did was wrong, profoundly wrong, and we told him so. A man doesn't abandon his family, his wife, his child, for another woman and call it love. That's selfishness, Sophia. Pure, unadulterated selfishness, not love." I felt tears welling in my eyes, not from sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of relief, of validation. Having Ethan's own parents, the people who had brought him into the world, acknowledge the depth of his wrongdoing somehow validated my feelings, my pain, my choices, in a way I hadn't expected, a way that healed a small, vulnerable part of my heart. "We want you to know that you and Riley will always be family to us," Margaret continued, her voice softening, yet unwavering. "This divorce doesn't change that. Riley is our granddaughter, and you've been like a daughter to us for 12 years. That bond doesn't just disappear because of Ethan's terrible choices." "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion, barely above a whisper. "That means more to me than you know." "We'd like to continue having Riley for visits, if that's all right with you," she pressed, extending an olive branch of enduring family. "And we'd like you to continue coming to family gatherings, Sophia. You belong there as much as anyone." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen, the phone still clutched in my hand, and cried tears of profound gratitude. I had been prepared to lose Ethan's family along with my marriage, to sever those ties completely, but instead, I was gaining allies, unexpected pillars of support who saw me and my truth. The next surprise came from an even more unexpected source. Victoria called me. "Sophia, this is Victoria Chin." Her voice, though unfamiliar, was instantly recognizable from my online investigation. "I think we need to talk." My first, primal instinct was to immediately hang up, to sever the connection to the woman who had, inadvertently, played a role in dismantling my life. But a strong, almost irresistible surge of curiosity stopped me. What could she possibly want to say? "What do you want to talk about?" I asked, my voice cool, guarded. "About Ethan? About what really happened?" "Yes," she said, her voice hesitant, a little vulnerable. "Can we meet for coffee? I promise I'm not trying to cause trouble, Sophia. I need to explain some things." Against my better judgment, driven by a compelling need for answers, for another perspective on Ethan's elaborate deception, I agreed to meet her at a quiet coffee shop downtown. I arrived first, choosing a discreet table in the back corner, my mind racing with possibilities, wondering what Ethan's girlfriend could possibly want to say to me. What narrative would she present? How would she justify her actions? Victoria walked in exactly on time, and I was struck by how different she looked from her carefully curated social media photos. In person, she seemed nervous, a little tired, and to my surprise, younger than I had expected. The veneer of sophisticated confidence was gone, replaced by an undeniable vulnerability. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice soft, as she sat down across from me, her eyes meeting mine directly. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm not sure why I did," I replied honestly, not bothering to mask my skepticism. Victoria ordered her coffee, her gaze unwavering as she looked directly at me. "I need you to know that Ethan lied to me too." "What do you mean?" The question was out before I could process it. Another layer of his deception? "He told me you were already separated," she explained, her words a startling revelation. "He said you were living like roommates, that you were planning to divorce anyway, and that he was just waiting for the right time to make it official. He made it sound like your marriage was a hollow shell, already over." I stared at her, processing this new, devastating piece of information. Ethan hadn't just lied to me. He had lied to her as well, creating a parallel narrative of his own victimhood. "When did he tell you that?" "From the very beginning," she admitted, her voice tinged with regret. "The first time we went out, he said he was technically still married, but that it was over in every way that mattered. He even implied that you knew about us, that you were both discreetly moving on." "I had no idea you existed until 2 weeks ago," I said, my voice cold, the full extent of Ethan's manipulative brilliance dawning on me. Victoria nodded, looking genuinely ashamed, her shoulders slumping. "I know that now. When he told me you were filing for divorce, I honestly expected him to be relieved, to finally be free to be with me. Instead, he was devastated, confused. That's when I realized he had been lying to both of us, weaving different stories for each of us, each designed to serve his own purposes." She pulled out her phone and showed me text messages between her and Ethan, a mirror image of the ones I had found on his secret phone, but from her perspective. "Look at these. After you confronted him, he begged me to wait, saying he needed time to fix things with you, that he realized he had made a mistake and wanted to save his family." Reading the messages was surreal, a grotesque echo of my own experience. Ethan was telling Victoria that he loved her, that she was his future, but he needed time to work things out with me. He was telling her that I was being unreasonable and vindictive, that I was making the divorce harder than it needed to be, all the while trying to string her along as a backup plan. "He's been lying to you too," I said, handing her phone back, the bitter truth a shared burden between us. "I know," she said, her voice shaking, a tremor of genuine upset in her tone. "That's why I wanted to talk to you. I'm not proud of having an affair with a married man, Sophia. I truly am not. But I honestly believed his marriage was already over. I would never have gotten involved if I had known the truth, if I had known he was actively deceiving you." "What are you going to do now?" I asked, a strange, unexpected flicker of sympathy stirring within me for this woman who had also been caught in Ethan's elaborate web of lies. "I ended things with him yesterday," she said, her voice firm, resolute. "I told him I couldn't be with someone who would lie so easily, so systematically, to his wife and his girlfriend. If he could deceive both of us so effortlessly, how could I ever trust him? How could I ever build a future with a foundation of such profound dishonesty?" I felt an unexpected connection with Victoria, a shared understanding of Ethan's manipulative nature. We had both been victims of his carefully crafted personas, his intricate deceptions. "I'm sorry he lied to you too," I said, the words genuine. "And I'm so sorry I was part of hurting you and Riley," she said, her eyes filled with a raw sincerity. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know that I never, ever intended to break up a happy marriage. I truly believed I was with a man who was already leaving an unhappy one." We talked for another hour, two women bonded by the discovery of one man's profound dishonesty. I learned that Victoria's version of Ethan was a carefully curated persona designed to appeal to her specific desires. To her, he had been the unhappily married man, longing for connection, seeking an escape from a stagnant life. To me, he had been the devoted husband, working late, providing for his family, the picture of reliability. He had masterfully crafted different personas for each of us, telling us both exactly what we needed to hear, what we wanted to believe, to secure his own selfish desires. "He's very good at being what people want him to be, Sophia," Victoria observed as we prepared to leave, a profound sadness in her voice. "I think that's his biggest problem. He doesn't truly know who he actually is, so he just mirrors what he thinks people expect, what he thinks will make them stay." That conversation, more than any other, gave me a new, clearer perspective on my marriage. Ethan hadn't left me for Victoria specifically. He had left me for the idea of being someone different, someone he wasn't, someone he thought he wanted to be. Victoria had simply been the convenient vehicle for his fantasy of a new life, a fresh start unburdened by the expectations of his existing one. The truth was far more complex, and in its own way, far more pathetic. A week later, I received another unexpected call. This time it was from Janet. "Ethan's attorney called today," she announced, her voice filled with a hint of surprise. "She said he wants to accept all of our terms for the divorce settlement. No further negotiation." "Really?" I asked, astonished by the sudden capitulation. "What changed?" "I think his relationship with Victoria ended, and he's finally realizing that fighting you isn't going to get him what he wants," Janet said, her tone pragmatic. "He's agreed to the custody arrangement, the asset division, everything. Your meticulous preparation, Sophia, combined with his unraveling personal life, has put you in an undeniable position of strength." "That seems too easy," I said suspiciously, still bracing for a fight. It felt like a trap, a lull before another storm. "Sometimes, Sophia, when people realize they've lost everything they thought they wanted, when their grand illusions shatter, they stop fighting for things they never really wanted in the first place," Janet explained, her wisdom evident. "Ethan learned that lesson the hard way. He's realized his carefully constructed new life isn't so attractive without the financial security and stability he was hoping to extract from yours." The divorce was finalized 2 weeks later. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter, freer than I had in months, as if a monumental weight had been lifted from my shoulders, a suffocating burden I had carried for years. Riley was waiting for me with Patricia, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked from the garden, her face alight with an innocent excitement that reflected my own burgeoning hope. "Are we officially divorced now?" she asked, her big brown eyes looking up at me, sensing the significance of the moment. "Yes, sweetheart, Mommy is officially single again," I affirmed, the words feeling remarkably good, like stepping into a brighter, cleaner space. "Good," she said matter-of-factly, a confident smile spreading across her face. "Now we can do whatever we want." Patricia laughed, a genuine, joyful sound. "That's the spirit, Riley. What do you want to do first?" "Ice cream for dinner," Riley declared immediately, her eyes sparkling with delight. "Ice cream for dinner it is," I agreed, my heart swelling with love for my resilient daughter, for my supportive sister. We drove to our favorite ice cream shop, celebrating not the end of my marriage, but the powerful, exhilarating beginning of a new chapter, a new life, built on authenticity and unshakable joy. That night, as I tucked Riley into bed, she asked me a question that showed just how much she had grown, how deeply she had processed the changes in our lives. "Mom, are you sad that Daddy isn't coming back?" I thought about the question seriously, searching my heart for the honest answer. "I'm sad that our family changed, baby," I admitted, "because change can be hard, but I'm not sad that we're building a new kind of life, a life that feels honest and happy. Are you sad?" "No," she said, snuggling deeper under her covers, her voice soft. "I like it when it's just us. We laugh more now." She was right. We did laugh more. We were building something together, a beautiful, unique life that belonged entirely to us, filled with genuine joy and mutual respect, and it felt truly, wonderfully real. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was thriving in ways I hadn't expected, blossoming into a woman I barely recognized. My consulting business had grown so much that I had hired an assistant and rented a small, bustling office downtown, a tangible symbol of my professional success. Riley was excelling in school, her confidence soaring, and she had made new friends in her after-school art program, her creativity flourishing in our peaceful, supportive home. We had created a life that felt full, purposeful, and profoundly joyful. The final legal documents arrived on a Tuesday morning. Janet had negotiated everything exactly as we had wanted. I kept the house, our family home, a sanctuary of stability for Riley. I received half of all marital assets, ensuring my financial independence and security. And I had primary custody of Riley, with generous, consistent visitation for Ethan, a balanced arrangement that prioritized her well-being. More importantly, I was financially secure enough and emotionally strong enough to confidently build the future I wanted for Riley and myself. "You did well, Sophia," Janet said when I called to thank her, her voice filled with admiration. "You went into this process prepared and focused, and you got exactly what you deserved. You set the standard for how a woman can reclaim her life." "I still can't believe how smoothly everything went once Victoria talked to him," I said, reflecting on the surprising turning point. Sometimes people need to lose everything they thought they wanted, all their carefully constructed illusions, before they realize what they actually had or what they truly need, Janet replied, her voice tinged with the wisdom of her profession. "Ethan learned that lesson the hard way, Sophia, and you, my dear, learned that you are far more powerful than you ever knew." That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Margaret, Ethan's mother, knocked on my door carrying a casserole dish and wearing a determined yet loving expression. "I brought dinner," she announced, walking into my kitchen as if she had done so dozens of times during my marriage, the familiar gesture now imbued with a new, profound meaning of chosen family. "And I have something to tell you." Riley ran to hug her grandmother, her face alight with joy, while I set the table for the casserole. Margaret had continued visiting us regularly since the divorce, maintaining her cherished relationship with both Riley and me, a testament to her unwavering love and her principled stance against her son's actions. "Ethan came to see us last weekend," Margaret said once Riley had gone upstairs to do her homework, the words deliberate, significant. "He wanted to talk about getting back together with you, Sophia." I nearly choked on my coffee, a jolt of disbelief shooting through me. After everything? After all this time, after his elaborate planning, his new life? "What did you tell him?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, a mix of curiosity and weary exasperation. "I told him he was 6 months too late and about 10 years too selfish," Margaret said bluntly, her eyes firm, unflinching. "I told him that you had built a beautiful, fulfilling life without him, a life filled with strength and joy, and he had no right to try to disrupt it now that his girlfriend had left him and his new life had collapsed." Her words were a shield, a fierce defense of my hard-won peace. "Victoria told him the same thing when she ended their relationship," I said, a faint smile touching my lips. "She said she couldn't trust someone who had lied to both of us so easily, so thoroughly." Margaret nodded approvingly. "Smart woman. I never liked the idea of her, of course, but I respect her for having standards, for seeing through his charade." "Did Ethan say anything else?" "He said he realized he had made a mistake, that he missed his family, that he wanted to try again to work things out," Margaret recounted, her voice tinged with a complex mix of pity and exasperation. "I told him that some mistakes, Sophia, can't be fixed, and this was one of them. You can't betray someone's trust so profoundly, so systematically, and then expect them to welcome you back with open arms when your other options don't work out." I was immensely grateful for Margaret's unwavering support, her fierce loyalty, but I was also curious about Ethan's state of mind, the impact of his shattered illusions. "How did he seem?" I asked. "Lost," Margaret said honestly, her voice softened by a maternal concern that still existed, despite his failings. "I think he's finally realizing that the grass wasn't greener on the other side, Sophia. His apartment is lonely, his relationship with Victoria fell apart, and he's watching you build a successful, vibrant life without him. Reality, I think, is finally setting in." That evening, Ethan called to talk to Riley. Their conversation was normal, filled with the usual pleasantries. He asked about school, her friends, her latest art projects. But when Riley handed me the phone to discuss weekend plans, Ethan's tone changed, a familiar shift in his voice, attempting to bridge a gap I had firmly established. "Sophia, I was wondering if we could talk sometime, just the two of us." "About what?" I asked, my voice calm, unwavering. About us? About our family? About whether there might be a chance to work things out? He ventured, his voice tinged with a hopeful desperation. I was quiet for a moment, choosing my words carefully, deliberately, ensuring they conveyed the unshakable truth of my stance. "Ethan, there is no us anymore," I stated, the words a clear, unyielding boundary. "There's you, and there's me, and there's Riley, who we both love. That's it. Our path forward is as co-parents, nothing more, nothing less. But what if I could prove that I've changed? What if I could show you that I understand what I lost?" he pleaded, clinging to a fading hope. "You can't prove you've changed in 6 months, Ethan, nor do I need you to show me what you lost," I said firmly, my patience wearing thin. "I need you to focus on being the best father you can be to Riley. That's the only relationship between us that matters now, the only one that has a future." "Sophia, please!" he tried again, a desperate plea in his voice. "No, Ethan, I'm not interested in trying again. I'm not interested in seeing if you've learned your lesson. And I am certainly not interested in being your backup plan now that Victoria is gone, now that your new life has failed. I'm building a life that makes me happy, a life that is authentic and fulfilling, and you are not, nor will you ever be, a part of it." After I hung up, I felt a profound sense of pride in how clearly I had communicated my boundaries, how firmly I had asserted my worth. The woman I used to be might have considered his request, might have wondered if she owed him a second chance, might have felt guilty for being so definitive, so uncompromising. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I was Sophia, and my strength was now my most powerful asset. A few weeks later, I learned that Ethan had tried to reconcile with Victoria as well, a final desperate attempt to reclaim his lost, new life. She had rejected him just as firmly as I had, telling him, as she later recounted to me in a brief, clarifying phone call, that she couldn't be with someone who only wanted her when his first choice wasn't available, someone who treated her as a secondary option. "He's been calling me every few days," Victoria told me, her voice exasperated. "I thought you should know in case he escalates with you too. He even asked to meet and talk about working things out." "I told him no," she added, her voice resolute. "Good," I responded, a quiet satisfaction settling over me. I think he's finally realizing that actions have consequences, but I don't think he's learned enough to actually change. He just wants to undo the consequences without doing the hard, painful work of genuine self-reflection and growth. Victoria was right. Over the next few months, Ethan made several persistent attempts to insert himself back into my life, testing my boundaries with a subtle, manipulative persistence. He volunteered to help with house repairs I hadn't asked for, attempting to demonstrate his helpfulness, his indispensable presence. He brought me flowers on my birthday, which I politely but firmly refused, recognizing the gesture for what it was, an attempt to rekindle something that was long dead. He suggested family dinners for Riley's sake, a thinly veiled attempt to reestablish a more intimate connection, which I consistently declined, always offering alternative arrangements that focused solely on Riley. Each time, I remained polite, but absolutely firm, unwavering in my resolve. I wasn't angry anymore, not with the same raw, searing intensity. But I was also no longer interested in giving him opportunities to manipulate me again, to subtly erode the hard-won peace and independence I had meticulously built. My boundaries were clear, my resolve unshakable. The final validation came from an unexpected yet deeply meaningful source. Richard, Ethan's father, came to see me one afternoon while Riley was at school. "I owe you an apology, Sophia," he said, sitting in my living room, looking visibly uncomfortable, his usual composure slightly ruffled. "You don't owe me anything, Richard," I responded, genuine surprise in my voice. "Yes, I do," he insisted, his gaze direct and earnest. "I raised a son who thought he could have everything he wanted without considering how his choices affected other people, especially the people he claimed to love. I should have taught him better. I should have instilled a deeper sense of responsibility, of integrity. Ethan is an adult who made his own choices, Richard," I said gently, offering him a measure of solace. "You're not responsible for what he did. We all make our own decisions, and we all live with the consequences. Maybe not for his actions, but I am proud of how you've handled everything, Sophia," Richard said, his voice filled with sincere admiration. "You've shown more grace, more strength, and more resilience than most people would in your situation. Margaret and I want you to know that we consider you our daughter, Sophia. Divorce or no divorce, that will never change." That conversation, coming from Ethan's own father, meant more to me than Richard probably realized. Having Ethan's own parents acknowledge that I had been wronged, that I deserved better, that they stood with me, validated everything I had felt but sometimes doubted during the hardest, most solitary parts of the divorce. It was a profound healing, a recognition that transcended the legalities and the broken vows. As the one-year anniversary of my divorce approached, I looked back on everything that had changed, the incredible metamorphosis my life had undergone. I had transformed from a woman who asked permission to buy shoes, a woman who allowed her voice to be muted, to one who was confidently running her own successful business, charting her own course. I had gone from accommodating everyone else's needs, prioritizing the fragile peace of a dishonest marriage, to prioritizing my own happiness and, most importantly, Riley's well-being. I had gone from being afraid of being alone, of the daunting prospect of single motherhood, to genuinely enjoying my independence, finding profound strength in my self-sufficiency. Most importantly, I had learned that I was stronger, smarter, and far more capable than I had ever given myself credit for, than Ethan had ever allowed me to believe. Ethan's betrayal had been devastating, yes, a shattering blow that had rocked my world to its foundations. But paradoxically, it had also been profoundly liberating. It had forced me to confront uncomfortable truths, to dig deep within myself and discover who I really was when I wasn't trying to be what someone else wanted, when I wasn't defined by a fraudulent relationship. The justice, the revenge I had received wasn't just legal or financial. It was deeply personal. I had reclaimed myself, my identity, my agency, and that, I knew with every fiber of my being, was worth more than any settlement, any amount of money. 1 year after discovering that hotel keycard in Riley's small, trembling hand, I stood in my newly renovated kitchen, a space now filled with light and color, looking out at the vibrant garden Riley and I had planted together. The morning sun streamed through windows I had chosen, lighting up walls painted in colors I loved, reflecting my taste, my personality. Everything in this house, our home, now reflected our personalities and preferences, not compromises made to keep someone else happy, not muted tones chosen to avoid conflict. It was a sanctuary of authenticity. "Mom, are you ready?" Riley called from the living room, her voice bright with excitement. She was dressed in her best outfit, a cheerful dress she had picked out herself, her anticipation palpable. Today marked the first anniversary of our new life together, and we were having a party, a joyous celebration. Not to celebrate the end of my marriage, but to wholeheartedly celebrate the vibrant beginning of our independence, our strength, and everything we had accomplished together in the past year. Patricia arrived first, her arms laden with colorful balloons and a beautiful cake she had baked herself. "Congratulations on your new life," was written in elegant script across the top, a heartfelt message from my sister, my confidant. Margaret and Richard came next, bringing thoughtful gifts for Riley and a stunning bouquet of flowers for me, their presence a comforting affirmation of our enduring family bond. Even Janet, my incredible lawyer, came, along with a few other close friends who had supported us through the tumultuous transition, each person a testament to the community we had built. "Look how different this house feels now," Patricia exclaimed, walking through the bright, airy rooms we had redecorated together, her eyes alight with admiration. "It's so much more you." She was right. The house had been utterly transformed from a space designed to accommodate Ethan's preferences, his muted tastes, into a warm, inviting home that truly reflected Riley's and my vibrant personalities. Bright colors, comfortable, well-loved furniture, artwork we cherished, books we actually read. It felt alive in a way it never had before, a place of peace and genuine happiness. "Mom, tell everyone about your big news," Riley said, bouncing with excitement, unable to contain her joy. "What big news?" Margaret asked, her eyes twinkling. I smiled, feeling a familiar mix of pride and nervousness, a delightful flutter in my stomach. "I've been accepted into the graduate program at the university. I'm going to get my MBA while continuing to run my business." The room erupted in a chorus of congratulations, hugs, and heartfelt cheers. Going back to school, pursuing my MBA, had been a long-held dream, a quiet ambition I had put aside when I got married, thinking it wasn't practical or necessary in my role as a wife and mother. Now I realized it wasn't just practical. It was absolutely essential for the future I wanted to build, a future of boundless possibilities. "When do you start?" Janet asked, her professional interest piqued. "Next month," I replied, beaming. "It's a part-time program designed specifically for working professionals, so I can keep my business thriving and still be completely available for Riley, my top priority." "I'm so incredibly proud of you, Sophia," Margaret said, hugging me tightly, her eyes filled with maternal affection. "You've accomplished so much this year. You've truly inspired us all." As the afternoon progressed, filled with laughter and stories, people shared observations about the positive changes they had noticed in Riley and me over the past year. We laughed more, smiled more, seemed more relaxed, more confident, more genuinely happy. Riley had joined the school art club, her creativity blossoming, and made new friends. I had started singing again, something several people fondly mentioned, a small detail that spoke volumes of my rediscovered joy. "You seem like yourself again, Sophia," Patricia observed, her gaze warm and knowing. "Like the person you were in college, before you got so focused on being the perfect wife." "I feel like myself again," I agreed, a profound sense of peace settling over me. It took losing my marriage to remember who I was outside of it. It took the darkest betrayal to find the brightest version of myself. As evening approached and our cherished guests began to leave, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the incredible support system we had built, a vibrant community of love and strength. These people had stood by us during the hardest year of our lives, weathering the storm with unwavering loyalty. And now they were celebrating our victories, our new beginnings, with an authentic joy that was infectious. After everyone left, Riley and I sat on the couch together, curled up under a soft blanket, looking through photos from the party, reliving the joyful moments, and from the past year, pictures of her vibrant art projects, my professional business achievements, our spontaneous beach vacations, our cozy holiday celebrations, everyday moments that showed how full, how rich, how authentically happy our life had become. "Are you happy, Mom?" Riley asked, curling up next to me, her small hand reaching for mine. "Yes, baby," I said, my voice thick with emotion, utterly sincere. "I'm happier than I've been in a very, very long time. Are you happy?" "Yeah," she said, her voice soft, content. "I like our life now. It feels more real." Her words surprised me, a profound insight from a child so young. "What do you mean, more real?" I asked, curious about her perception. "Before," she explained, her brow furrowed in concentration, "it felt like we were all pretending to be happy. But now, we actually are happy. It's different." Riley's insight amazed me. Even as a child, she had sensed the underlying tension, the falseness in our family dynamics, the careful pretense we had maintained when Ethan was living his double life. Now, she could feel the authenticity, the genuine contentment that permeated our home, a testament to the power of truth and genuine happiness. Later that evening, after Riley had gone to bed, lost in the sweet dreams of childhood, I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea, reflecting on everything that had changed, on the remarkable journey I had taken. My phone buzzed with a text message, and I was surprised to see it was from Ethan. "I saw on social media that you had a party today. I hope you and Riley are doing well." I stared at the message for a moment, a wave of old emotions washing over me, quickly followed by a sense of calm detachment, before responding simply, "We are. Thank you." He wrote back immediately, a sense of urgency in his words. "I know I don't have the right to ask, but are you happy, Sophia?" I thought about how to answer that question, a loaded query that carried so much weight. Was I happy? Yes, but not in the way he probably meant, not in the way he understood happiness. I wasn't happy because I had gotten revenge on him, or because I had won the divorce, though those elements certainly played a part in my sense of justice. I was happy because I had rediscovered myself, because I had built a life that felt authentic, fulfilling, and profoundly meaningful, a life that was entirely mine. "Yes," I wrote back, allowing a simple truth to speak volumes. "I am happy." His response took longer to come, a silent pause that indicated a deeper reflection on his part. "I'm glad," he finally wrote. "You deserve to be happy." It was the most honest thing he had said to me in years, perhaps ever, and I appreciated it, a flicker of acknowledgement from the man who had once tried to destroy my happiness. But it didn't change anything between us. The bridge was burned, the path diverged. 2 months later, at Riley's school art show, surrounded by vibrant paintings and the joyful chatter of children, I met someone who would become important to our story, a new, unexpected chapter in my journey. James Morrison was the father of one of Riley's classmates, a kind, warm-eyed man who had recently moved to town after his own divorce. "Riley's mentioned that you run your own business," he said, as we watched our daughters proudly show off their colorful paintings, his voice friendly, admiring. "That's impressive, Sophia." "Thank you," I replied, a genuine smile gracing my lips. "It's been challenging, but incredibly rewarding. It's truly been a journey of self-discovery." We talked easily about parenting, about our respective work, about the unique challenges and unexpected triumphs of starting over after divorce. James was kind, funny, and refreshingly honest about his own struggles and victories, his genuine nature a stark contrast to the performative facade I had grown accustomed to. Most importantly, he treated Riley with an easy respect and genuine interest when she came over to show us her artwork, his interactions with her natural and warm. "Would you maybe like to have coffee sometime?" he asked as the art show was winding down, a hopeful glint in his eyes. "I would like that," I said, surprising myself with how ready I felt, how open I was to the possibility of dating again, of perhaps finding love on my own terms. As Riley and I drove home that night, she asked about James, her curiosity clear. "He seems nice, Mom, and his daughter Emma is really cool. Do you think it would be okay if I went to coffee with him?" I asked, testing the waters, valuing her opinion above all else. Riley considered this seriously, her brow furrowed in thought. "Will you still have time for me?" she asked, her priority clear. "Always, baby," I promised, my hand reaching for hers, intertwining our fingers. "You're my priority, and that will never, ever change. Any person who comes into my life must understand that." "Then I think it's okay," she said, her smile returning. "You deserve to have friends who make you smile, Mom." Her approval, freely given, was all the permission I needed. 6 months later, James and I were in a committed, loving relationship. He was everything Ethan hadn't been: honest, supportive, communicative, and genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings, in my life. He saw me, truly saw me, for who I was, and celebrated it. More importantly, he loved Riley, treating her with a warmth and affection that was beautiful to witness, and she adored him, finding in him a steady, kind male presence. "Are you going to marry James?" Riley asked one day as we worked in our flourishing garden together, her small hands digging in the soil beside mine. "Maybe someday, sweetheart," I said, a soft smile playing on my lips. "How would you feel about that?" "I think it would be good," she said, her response thoughtful. "He makes you laugh, and he helps with my math homework, and he doesn't try to change everything about our house." That last comment, so simple and yet so profound, made me laugh out loud. James had seamlessly fit into the life Riley and I had built together, rather than trying to recreate it around his own preferences, his own dictates. He added to our happiness without subtracting from our hard-won independence, without diminishing our established sense of self. 2 years after my divorce, I graduated with my MBA, a triumph of perseverance and rediscovered ambition. My consulting business had expanded into a small, thriving firm, employing 5 talented people and serving clients across 3 states. I bought a beautiful vacation house at the beach, a sanctuary where Riley and I spent our summers, building new memories, new traditions under the warm sun. On a warm Saturday morning, as I sat on the deck of our beach house, watching Riley and James build elaborate sandcastles with his daughter Emma, their laughter echoing across the waves, I received a call that, in a strange way, put everything into perspective. It was Victoria. "Sophia, I hope you don't mind me calling," she began, her voice hesitant. "I have some news I thought you should know." "Of course. What's going on?" I asked, a flicker of curiosity but no anxiety. "Ethan contacted me last week," she said, her voice a little strained. "He's getting married." I felt a fleeting moment of surprise, a faint echo of my past, then realized I felt nothing else about this news. No jealousy, no anger, no sorrow. Just a quiet, profound indifference. "Good for him," I said genuinely. "I hope they're happy together." "It's not me," Victoria said quickly, clarifying, a hint of amusement in her voice. "It's someone new, someone he met at work. Her name is Jessica, and from what I can tell, she's about 10 years younger than us." "I see. A familiar pattern, perhaps. He wanted me to know because he thought I might be jealous or want to try again," she explained, a wry note in her tone. "I told him I was happy for him and that I hoped he had learned enough about himself to be a better husband this time around, to break his old patterns." After we hung up, I sat quietly for a moment, processing this information, another milestone in Ethan's life, completely separate from mine. Ethan was remarrying, probably to someone who didn't know his history of deception, his elaborate web of lies. Part of me felt a pang of pity for his new wife, but mostly I felt an immense, profound gratitude that his need for a fresh start, his intricate dramas, were no longer my problem, no longer a weight I had to carry. My life was full, authentic, and free. "Everything okay?" James asked, coming up from the beach, his hair dusted with sand, a gentle concern in his eyes. "Ethan's getting remarried," I said, stating the fact simply. "How do you feel about that?" he asked, sitting down beside me, his hand finding mine, a comforting, steady presence. I thought about the question seriously, searching for any lingering resentment, any hidden pain. "I feel nothing about it," I confessed. "Is that weird?" "I think it's perfectly healthy, Sophia," James said, squeezing my hand gently. "It means you've truly, genuinely moved on. You're free." That evening I had a conversation with Riley about her father's upcoming marriage. She took the news with the same mature, thoughtful perspective she had shown throughout our divorce process, a testament to her inherent resilience and the open, honest environment we had created. "Will I have to go to the wedding?" she asked, her brow furrowed in thought. "Only if you want to," I explained, emphasizing her autonomy. "Your relationship with your father is separate from his relationship with his new wife. You get to decide what you're comfortable with." "I don't think I want to go," she said after thinking about it for a moment. "I don't really know her, and it might be weird. I think I'd rather spend that weekend with you." "That's perfectly fine, sweetheart," I reassured her, my heart swelling with love. "You never have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable or that doesn't feel right for you." Riley's relationship with Ethan had evolved into something that worked for all of us, a balanced, respectful dynamic. She saw him every other weekend and enjoyed their time together, but she was clear that her primary home, her deepest happiness, her true sense of belonging, were with me. Ethan had become a loving but peripheral figure in her life, which seemed to suit everyone involved. The wedding took place 3 months later. Ethan had invited Riley, but respected her decision not to attend. Margaret and Richard went, more out of a sense of duty than enthusiasm, and reported back that it had been a small, simple ceremony. "How did he seem?" I asked Margaret when she called to tell me about it, genuinely curious about his new chapter. "Happy," she said, her voice thoughtful. "But in that nervous way people are when they're trying very hard to be happy, rather than genuinely feeling it. Jessica seems nice enough, but she's very young. I wonder if she knows what she's getting into, his history of patterns." "That's not our concern anymore, Margaret," I reminded her gently, a soft but firm boundary in my voice. "Ethan's choices are his own to make, and his own to live with. His journey is separate from ours." "You're right, of course," she conceded. "I just hope he's learned enough to do better this time." I hoped so too, for Jessica's sake, and for Riley's sake, as her father's happiness, or lack thereof, would inevitably impact her. But his success or failure in his new marriage was no longer, I realized with a profound sense of relief, connected to my happiness or my well-being. My path was my own, my joy self-generated. 6 months after Ethan's wedding, James proposed to me on the same beautiful beach where we had spent so many happy weekends with our daughters, building sandcastles, watching the waves, making new, cherished memories. The proposal was simple and perfect, completely authentic to us. No grand gestures, no public displays, just a quiet, intimate moment between two people who had found genuine love, deep respect, and true partnership. "Are you sure you want to take on a ready-made family?" I asked him after I said yes, a joyful, tearful affirmation, a slight teasing note in my voice.
"Sophia," he said, his eyes filled with such love and sincerity, "you and Riley aren't something I'm taking on. You're something I'm incredibly grateful to be included in. You built something so beautiful and resilient together, and I'm honored that you're letting me be a part of it to help cultivate and cherish it."
Our wedding was everything my first wedding hadn't been. Authentic, joyful, intimate, and profoundly focused on celebrating the genuine love we had found, the true partnership we had forged, rather than putting on a grand show for other people, for societal expectations. Riley was my maid of honor, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Emma, James's daughter, was our flower girl, a sweet, beaming presence, and we exchanged vows we had written ourselves, heartfelt declarations of love and commitment, in front of the people who had truly supported us through our individual journeys to find each other. "Today we're not just joining our lives together," I said in my vows, looking into James's kind, loving eyes, my voice filled with emotion. "We're joining our families together, weaving our stories into a beautiful new tapestry, and we're promising to build something that honors both where we've come from, the lessons we've learned, and where we're going, a future filled with honesty, respect, and unwavering love." James's vows brought tears to my eyes, a profound echo of my own deepest desires. "Sophia, you've shown me what it means to be with someone who is truly your partner, your equal, your unwavering ally. You've taught me that real love isn't about changing someone to fit your life, but about building a life that celebrates who you both truly are, in all your glorious complexity and independence." As we danced at our reception, surrounded by family and friends who had supported us through our divorces and new beginnings, who had witnessed our pain and celebrated our triumphs, I reflected on the incredible journey that had brought me to this moment. 3 years earlier, I had been a woman who asked permission to buy shoes, a woman who believed that accommodating everyone else's needs, quieting her own desires, made her a good wife. The discovery of that hotel keycard had shattered my world, yes, ripping apart the illusion of my carefully constructed life, but it had also, in its brutal honesty, freed me to discover who I really was, to unearth the strength and resilience I never knew I possessed. The revenge I had ultimately gotten wasn't the kind that comes from hurting someone who hurt you, from exacting an eye for an eye. It was the profound, sweet revenge that comes from building a life so beautiful, so authentic, so fulfilling, that you are ultimately grateful for the very events that led you to it. Ethan had thought he was leaving me for something better, for a new life, a grander adventure, but he had, in fact, given me the most precious gift of all, the opportunity to find myself again, to reclaim my identity, my purpose, my joy. He had thought I would be lost without him, dependent and helpless, but I had discovered, with an exhilarating certainty, that I was stronger, more capable, and far more self-sufficient than either of us had ever imagined. As the evening wound down and our guests began to leave, their faces alight with the warmth of our celebration, Riley came up to me, her small face beaming, a huge smile on her face. "Mom, this was the best day ever," she said, hugging me tightly, her arms wrapped around my wedding dress. "It really was, wasn't it, sweetheart?" I said, my heart full to bursting. "And Mom," she added, looking up at me, her eyes filled with pride and love, "I'm proud of you. You made everything turn out perfect." Standing there in my beautiful wedding dress, surrounded by people who loved and supported me, married to a man who appreciated and respected me for exactly who I was, I realized that Riley was right. Everything had, indeed, turned out perfect. Not because it had gone according to my original plan, that carefully constructed illusion of a life, but because I had been brave enough to create a new plan, an authentic, vibrant plan, when the old one had fallen apart, when the lies had been exposed. The hotel key card that had destroyed my first marriage had ultimately, miraculously, led me to a life beyond anything I had dared to dream, a life more real, more joyous, more fulfilling than I could have ever imagined. Sometimes the worst betrayal, the deepest heartbreak, can become the greatest gift, if you are strong enough to unwrap it, to confront the pain, and to bravely see what truly lies inside. As James and I drove away from our reception towards our honeymoon, a new beginning, I looked back at the woman I used to be, at Sophia, the perfect wife, and felt nothing but profound gratitude for her courage to demand better, for her resilience, for her unwavering spirit. She had saved us all, me, Riley, and even, in a strange, circuitous way, Ethan, who now had the chance, perhaps, to learn from his mistakes and finally build something real, something honest, with someone new. The sweet victory wasn't that I had gotten revenge on my cheating husband. The sweet victory was that I had gotten my life back, and it was more beautiful than I had ever thought possible.